is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Hello guys, so today we'll be learning about the quadratic formula. Okay, so your quadratic formula itself is by far one of the more popular formulas that you might remember years from now. So your formula itself is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So what this does is, well, it solves for your x-intercepts, your roots, using this formula for your quadratic equation. You're probably thinking, well, I can find the roots before. I haven't used the quadratic formula before. I've done it fine, and I found those x-intercepts of those roots. Well, you can always use this formula whenever you end up with a quadratic equation that possibly cannot be factored or the numbers are a bit messy. You can always use this formula to kind of help yourself out. And finally, a concept called the discriminant, okay, which is b squared minus 4ac, will always tell you how many solutions you might have or you will have. So either you will end up with a 2 roots, 1 root, or your quadratic equation will not end up hitting your x-axis. So for example 1, we have x squared plus 3x minus 4. Now I've divided this up. First way I'll do factoring, second way I'll do quadratic formula, just to show you that you end up getting the same answer. So when it comes to factoring, well, when we take a look at this, what multiplies to negative 4 that adds up to 3?
So that would be 4 and negative 1. So x plus 4 and x minus 1. You end up getting, set these both equal to 0. You get x is equal to negative 4 and x is equal to 1.
So for your quadratic formula, remember how your quadratic equation should be set up. So it's always ax squared plus bx plus c. You want to look for your coefficients. So I'm going to write off to the side, I'm going to say, well, what is a, what is b, and what is c, right? So within this place, well, what's in front of that x squared? Okay, that would be a coefficient of 1. Well, for bx, for this position, well, what's in front of your x in this position? That would be 3. And lastly, for your c position, that would end up being negative 4. Now, if you forgot your quadratic formula already, well, I'll do you a favor, I'll place it right here. So we are ready to put this back in our formula. We have a, b, and c ready. We just need to go back and plug it back in. So I have negative b, which is 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 3 again. So 3 squared minus 4 times ac, times 1 times negative 4, all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. I need to clean this up a bit. I'm going to have negative 3 plus or minus. Let's clean this square root up a bit. So 3 squared is 9, minus negative 4 times 1 times negative 4 is a negative 16. Well, a negative and a negative is a positive, so I'm going to change that. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, again, let's clean this up a bit more. So negative 3 plus or minus 9 plus 16 is 25. The square root of 25 is just 5, all over 2. I'm going to end up with 2 answers because I have plus or minus. So I'll have 2 solutions for this. All right, my 2 solutions are, okay, so one of them is going to be negative 3 plus 5 divided by 2. And my other solution is negative 3 minus 5 divided by 2. So negative 3 plus 5 is a positive 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And negative 3 minus 5 is a negative 8. Negative 8 divided by 2 is a negative 4. And as you can see, we end up with the same answers. So 1 and negative 4, and 1 and negative 4. So what we're going to explain next is a concept called the discriminant, okay, which is b squared minus 4ac. Now, if you remember, this should look pretty familiar because it's a part of your quadratic formula. So that part right there, okay? Now, the reason why this is important is because this actually shows you or tells you how many solutions you will have. So how many points or how many times it'll hit the x-axis. So, for instance, if you have b squared minus 4ac, if it's a number greater than 0, you're going to have 2 points that hit the x-axis, okay? If you have b squared minus 4ac equal to 0, you're only going to have 1 point, which actually deflects off your x-axis. So sort of like this. So it deflects off your x-axis, and it has only 1 point of intersection. And you have b squared minus 4ac less than 0, where you'll have 0 points. Again, if you're wondering what that looks like, and you've dealt with it before, is if you have your vertex here, this quadratic equation will not hit your x-axis. So those are your 3 possible cases. All right, for our second example, we have negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 2. Now, you can try factoring this. You'll end up having a hard time. So then we can resort to our quadratic formula. Now, before I even end up doing this, let's find out how many solutions we'll have. And that's what I just explained with the discriminant. So let's find out how many we have, either 1, 2, or 0. So again, this being my A, B, and C, B squared is, well, 2 squared
minus 4, A, negative 2, C is 2. Now, 2 squared is 4. A negative 4 times a negative 2 is a positive 8. 8 times 2 is 16. So negative 4 times negative 2 next, so it's positive 16. I end up having 20.
Okay, so what this means is, well, 20 is greater than 0, so I'll end up having 2 solutions. We have 2 solutions. We can go ahead and find out what our 2 solutions are. So before I begin, let's go ahead and write down our quadratic formula. So at this point, I have my formula ready. I've got my quadratic equation. Let's label our A, B, and C. So A would end up being negative 2, B is 2, and C is also 2. Okay, let's plug that right back into our formula. So I end up having negative b, well, negative 2 plus or minus b squared, which is 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is a negative 2, c, which is a 2, all over 2 times a, which is negative 2. Right? So let's end up simplifying this a bit more. So negative 2 plus or minus 2 squared, let's clean that square root up a bit. 4, negative 4 times negative 2. Well, actually, we just found out this earlier, didn't we? When we did the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, we ended up with 20. So we can save all that time beforehand. And then 2 times negative 2 would end up being negative 4. Root of 20 a bit more. So I'll end up having negative 2 plus or minus, this should be a 2 square root of 5 over negative 4. Now something you guys often forget is how to deal with this fraction. Okay, so you have 2 scenarios here. So I can do negative 2 divided by negative 4, but I can also do 2 over negative 4. So here's what you end up with. Now I have negative 2 over negative 4, that's just 0.5. And I have plus and minus 2 over negative 4, that is a negative 0.5 square root of 5. And again, you're going to have 2 answers here, that plus and minus. So your first answer is going to be, let's write up here. So 0.5 plus a negative 0.5 square root of 5. And your second answer is going to end up being 0.5 minus a negative 0.5 square root of 5. When you do finish this off, you'll end up, now you do need a calculator for this, because I don't expect you to know what square root of 5 is, but you end up having negative 0.618 as one x value, and for your other x value, you end up getting 1.618. That's your other x value. All right, so for your practice problem for tonight, okay, so use the discriminant to determine the number of roots of x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. If your roots are real, I want you to find them. So there is your practice problem for tonight.